That's what the Angel of Death said. If you don't earn the right to an afterlife, you just go up in smoke. I remember staring at Death's halo as he talked to me, thinking it strange that the bits which had crumbled and fallen away from the main halo had simply frozen and floated in midair. His eyes were wide and pitch black. They penetrated my soul and they made me afraid. I'm not sure why I listened to Death. Maybe his eyes had something to do with it. I mean, I was still in high school. I had no reason to think about the subject. It's not like I suffered from any terminal illness, but Death's speech haunted me anyway. He said a price had to be paid. I would be given a special power to devour humans. I merely needed to place my hand on their heads and their flesh would flee their bones and be compressed into my life essence. But what about those other people? I asked. Isn't it wrong to devour innocent people? Death just looked at me and shrugged. There are forces at work beyond your comprehension. You must placate them. He didn't seem interested in clearing my conscience. He disappeared in a puff of smoke, telling me that I had 7 days to complete my task. I called my friend Liam right after. He wasn't picking up his phone. I sighed. I really didn't want to go down a couple flights of stairs, but I really needed to talk to someone. And so I hurried down the few flights of stairs and I pounded on Liam's door. He'd be home too since it was the weekend. Liam didn't answer right away. I heard him talking with someone else. The conversation sounded heated. And then all of a sudden, the talking ceased. I waited and then I knocked again. Liam opened the door smiling. I asked him who he was talking to. He said just his aunt on the phone. They weren't really close anymore, but I could have sworn that I heard another voice. And so I hesitantly told Liam about my encounter with the Angel of Death. I'm not sure why I trusted him to not think I was batshit crazy, but I needed to trust somebody with the information. Liam just nodded. I don't think he dismissed what I said, if for no other reason than because Liam was very interested in the occult. I told Liam what Death wanted me to do, to ensure that I had an afterlife. He advised me not to listen to Death. You really don't have enough information. You don't want to damn your soul or anything. I mean, not that I really believe in heaven or hell, but you just don't know what's out there. It could be anything. In the moment, I thought that Liam was right. I didn't know enough about the situation to make a sound judgment one way or another. I went back upstairs to my apartment. Mom was home. She had the weekends off because she was a school teacher. My dad toiled away in his art studio room, sequestered away. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had 7 days to earn an afterlife, and I wasn't sure if I even wanted to go through with it. Not just for immoral reasons, also because of what Liam had said. Would I be damning my soul inadvertently if I cannibalized them? Days went by quickly. I avoided studying and time consumed itself rapidly when you're playing video games. I had little inclination to hang out with Liam. My brain fixated on what Death had said. I felt like the kid who had just discovered the innocent thing he believed in all his life had been shot to hell. It's not like I believed in an afterlife. More like, I didn't think it would be a place where only certain people would be allowed to go. Or not only that, but a place where heaven or hell could exist, but I wouldn't know for sure until it was too late. I went to bed that night with much on my mind. I found that I couldn't sleep. I fidgeted under the blanket and I stared out of the window. Then death came into my room as the wind howled and sounded like an oncoming train. The lights went out briefly, and when they turned back on, I saw death and his crumbling halo. Remember, you have 7 days, my friend. A little less than that now. I'm still not sure what I'm going to do, I replied, sitting up in bed. I don't want to condemn myself to hell, or any place like it. But I am telling you what you need to do to attain life after death. And besides, hell or any place like it is a mirage. Be careful, or your friend will lead you astray. I don't even know you, or if what you're saying is the truth. I have no reason to lie. I am the angel of death. A word of advice: don't let tonight waste away. You have flesh to rent, and your own soul to think about. After death left, I had a lot to think about. In the end, I decided that I didn't want to just go up and smoke. I had to do something to ensure that I went somewhere after death. It was amazing how the survival instinct worked. Despite the prospect of eternal torment, I still wanted to live. I think I rationalized it because I had no way to know if my friend's speculation was anyway correct. And Death made a good point. He had no real reason to lie. Those large black eyes freaked me out, but then again, he was the angel of death, not of mercy or whatever. Death, despite being approved by any god, still possessed a ring of darkness that could never be expunged. I decided that I was going to rend flesh tonight. But who? I thought of all the people in my building, thinking of the easiest targets that wouldn't be missed. People whose lives hung by a thread. And then I got it. Old Man Mallory. He had lived in this apartment building for many years, well before my parents moved in. He never had any visitors, or if he did, they were very rare. If he went tomorrow, he wouldn't be missed. And so it was settled. I quietly exited my room and I opened the front door as quietly as I could. I went down the first set of stairs and onto the landing. I knocked on Mallory's door. I would think of something so that Mallory would be compelled to open his door all the way. And then once I was in his apartment, door shut, no escape. Hello? Mr. Mallory, this is an emergency. We need to borrow your fire extinguisher. My gosh, come right in, Mallory said, voice sounding like sandpaper. He opened the door quickly, leaving it open, and then rushed into the kitchen where he kept his extinguisher. I shut the door, planning to rend Mallory's flesh once he came back from the kitchen. But I heard a crashing sound in the kitchen and then a grunt. I ran into the kitchen and I caught Liam on the floor on top of Mallory's convulsing body. Flesh was coming off of Mallory in peels. Liam, what the hell? Don't judge me, Dean. You were here to do the same. I shoved Liam off of Mallory, knocking him against the kitchen counter. I heard Liam's skull crack against the counter with a sickening sound. I didn't care. I placed my left hand on Mallory's wrinkled forehead, waiting for the flesh to start loosening again so that it would transfer to my body. When it did flow to me, I seemed to lose control of my body. This took a long time, and after I came to, Mallory had become a skeleton and there was no sign of Liam, except for the blood stain on the counter. I searched the apartment, finding the front door open. I closed it. Fortunately, nobody was passing by. I didn't want to leave Mallory's skeleton on the floor, in case anybody came to check on him, and so I placed a hand on the skeleton just to see what would happen. The skeleton raised slightly off the ground, and then the bones crackled and crumbled, flowing into me like I was simply a giant vacuum cleaner. I then cleaned up Liam's bloodstain. The apartment was in pretty good shape once I left, and over the course of the next couple of days, I cannibalized several other people in the building. Single loners who wouldn't be missed. 2 were elderly. A few just down on their luck college students who didn't spend their nights in the most glorious of ways. I wondered what had happened to Liam. It was like he just completely disappeared. Even though we seemed to have a rivalry now, he wanted to absorb enough flesh to make it to the afterlife, and he probably saw me as just another predator. I decided to call him. I had after all thrown Liam off Mallory, but he never returned any of my phone calls. Knocking on his door met with the same result. His mom answered, looking at me like something was wrong with me. He said Liam had decided to stay at his friend's house. I knew something else had happened. I just couldn't figure out what. I gave up on Liam because what else could I really do? Could I call the cops? I had attacked him in Mallory's apartment after all, and I didn't want to open up a can of worms. Who knew what else the cops would check into that might have implicated me? I did meet someone though. A strange, green-eyed pale woman by the name of Edith. She said that she had been watching me. She invited me in for tea, maybe sandwiches. I found the request a little bit bizarre, but impossible to say no to. When the door closed and locked, I started to get an uneasy feeling. I looked at Edith again, whose eyes became large and black. A thick black ooze leaked from them, and she spoke in tongues for what seemed like several minutes. Suddenly, I could understand Edith. The angel of death is leading you astray. The only afterlife you're earning for yourself is. And how do I know if you're telling me the truth? I asked. I feel like I'm in a world of perfidious angels. Edith placed a hand on my head. I felt ooze dripping down my forehead, leaking into my nose and mouth. I coughed and sputtered, and when I finally shook off the ooze, I was in Mallory's apartment. Large spheres of black ooze floated in the air, and there were these huge rats clinging to the black ooze, eating it like it was a snack. Some of the rats were rather impressive in their size, and some of them had black wings as big as you would see on an owl. They glided past me screeching, baring fangs and snapping them at me. Fire blew from their nostrils in hazy spears of orange. What the hell happened to this place? You committed a great evil here. Now it's a gathering place for fallen angels. I heard Edith's voice say. I don't see them, I said, looking around. The rats. They only exist now in the dilapidated havens where evil flourishes. When the 7 days are over, you might find yourself here, or any number of places hidden away from the human eye, nibbling on black ooze. I shivered. How do I undo this? Edith stepped forward, black ooze dripping from her eyes. She had to swipe away at some of the flying, carnivorous rats. One of them headed right for me, and I dodged clumsily. You stole Mallory's flesh, his life essence. You have the power to give it back to him. But I absorbed his skeleton too. Go to the kitchen, the scene of the great crime. And so I did, dodging fire-breathing rats who seemed like they wanted to eat me alive. I had to swat at them madly. After I made my way to the kitchen, I saw Death standing there. I am sympathetic to your dilemma. You want an afterlife, but you feel like you have committed a great evil. You feel like if it goes uncorrected, you will end up in a fiery place. It shall not be named, but Edith, this angel of mercy, wants to trap you in her dark web. A web of lies and eternal destruction. She's giving me a chance for redemption. I protested, all of a sudden feeling hot and sweaty. Is she now? Where's the proof? Stop trying to confuse me. I ran out of the kitchen and I bumped into Edith, who still looked horrifying despite her good intentions. You must gather an item of Mallory's, and try searching his bedroom, and then take the item back to the scene of the great crime. It'll become clear what you have to do then. I had to go down a long, dark hallway before I found Mallory's bedroom. I opened the door and I instantly coughed and I choked at the stench of death. The room seemed large and devoid of any activity at first, but then I saw something blurry and green-skinned standing near the bed. Black ooze eyes, just like all the rest. Liam, what happened to you? After what you did, I knew that I was too chicken shit to do it. I went to Death and I pleaded my case. I told him that I would do anything to achieve life after death. You might achieve the same, but always remember, I got there before you did. Look, Liam, I don't want to hurt you. I just want an item of Mallory's. To undo what you did. Redemption. What a laugh. There was something bent and blurry about Liam. Something corrupt and a little sad. I inched towards the dresser of the wall opposite the bed. I grabbed a random object. It felt smooth and cold. Once I save myself, I'll come for you, Liam. I promise. Liam just laughed and he became even blurrier. Looking at him caused me a piercing headache, and I knew that I needed to look away. I had to battle more flying, fire-breathing rats on my way back to the kitchen. They seemed extra interested in me, like the evil that had sprouted within me when I absorbed Mallory's flesh grew in such a short time, as if going to the bedroom and stealing the item was an evil act itself. Edith stood there, looking pleased. You have the item. Good. Now place it on the ground and place your hand on it. I did as she asked. Death materialized out of nowhere. The angel of mercy is deceptive. Mark my words. Or more accurately, she knows now what she does. Death said, ooze pouring down his eyes. He began talking in tongues and I placed Mallory's music box on the ground, putting a hand on it. I saw several fire-breathing rats make their way close to me, only to explode about a foot from my face. Death just laughed and Edith had a smirk on her face, as if she was content to watch the madness flow. And then my vision was consumed by fire. When the smoke cleared, Mallory's apartment had returned to normal, complete with Mallory himself. What are you doing here? Mallory asked, looking alarmed. I guess to him, none of this had happened, and I was just an intruder in his apartment. Sorry. You wanted to help me kill a rat in your apartment. You faded when I went to get the broom. Oh, Mallory said suspiciously. I don't remember that. But Mallory was an old man, and he doubted his memory. I went back to my apartment. Mom and Dad were worried sick, and I made some excuse for my absence. Going to bed later that evening didn't offer any peace. Edith and Death stood by my window, holding hands. "Well played, Edith. You seem to be a master of the heavenly chessboard." "Oh, thank you, darling," Edith said. They both still had the ooze leaking from their eyes. "But don't fret. You played well." "Don't count me out just yet," Death said. And then they disappeared in a cloud of flames. I thought everything went back to normal, and it did for a while. Several weeks later, though, I saw Mr. Mallory coming out of his apartment, favoring his bad hip. He smiled at me as I came down the stairs. He wanted to know if I would like some tea. I came in, figuring after what I did to him, it was the least that I could do. He disappeared into the kitchen, and I sat on the lime green couch in the living room, noting how everything in the apartment went back to normal, and no one had known it went to hell except me, and the angels of death and mercy. An odd pair, but I tried not to judge. Mallory came back with 2 cups of tea and sat down with effort. I'll never forget that day, because his eyes leaked the black ooze. He spoke in tongues for several minutes, and then he told me that as long as he could stay in Mallory's body, he wouldn't go to hell, or a place like it.